Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Melissa Kalo, the Managing Director of Camp Broadway, and we've had a few videos that we shared with you with information about our great staff and how we've adapted our in-person programming to our new virtual program called MyMainstage. And today I have some of the featured players joining us to share a little bit about their experience with camp. Their point of view is really interesting because they spend more time with the campers than anybody on the team. So they're with our campers from the minute they join the workspace, whether that is an in-person studio or whether it's a virtual room, until they get across the finish line, creating all of their performance content to deliver in the show. So today, I've just asked all of them to quickly introduce themselves and share a little bit about their experience as professional performers, and also any fun credits or teaching experience that have been highlights for them. So we can start with Alexandra.
Hi there, I'm Alexandra. I am an actor based out of New York, but I've worked all over the country and also on cruise ships. And then as far as my teaching experience, I work in the city as a tutor and a child care professional when I'm not acting. And then I also have done lots and lots of theater for young audiences all over America.
Great. And then we have also Isaac, who in addition to teaching, has helped develop some of the content for the program and also will be playing Nathan in our production of Guys and Dolls.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Isaac. I've been with Camp Broadway since the day after I graduated college, so 9 years now. And I've also done a bunch of professional theater and done cruise ships and things like that. And some of my favorite teaching credits would include in the past few years I've started playing guitar and singing for little babies, doing Mom and Me style music classes. But I really always enjoyed any of the teaching experience I've got throughout my Camp Broadway tenure too.
Great, and then Anna, it's fun. I pointed out in our introduction to Holly that Holly was in the 1992 production of Guys and Dolls, which happened to be the first Broadway show you saw. And then you guys worked together at Camp Broadway the last time Camp Broadway did Guys and Dolls, which I think was in 2010.
Maybe.
But anyway, just share a little bit more about yourself with the gang.
Hi guys, my name is Anna. Yes, I'm really excited that we're doing Guys and Dolls this summer. As Melissa said, it was the first Broadway show I saw, and looking back in the playbill, I did see it with Holly Ray, which was amazing to think back on. It's also a very special show in my family, so I never get sick of working on Guys and Dolls. And yeah, I've been with Camp Broadway for a while as a featured player, as well as the director choreographer for the Shining Stars program, which I sorely missed this summer. But I also work in the city as an actor, like Alexandra and Isaac. I've done a couple of national tours, performed regionally, which is just so much fun. And I've also done a lot of theater for young audiences, which is so interesting to have kids in the audience. It definitely informs my role as a teacher and what the audience as kids, specifically, what they get, what they retain, and it's just so fun to have a whole bunch of kids in the audience.
So with that, Anna, that's a good segue to my question around structure for the virtual camp. So we had our MainStage program. At some point early on in all of the stay-at-home orders, I called you up and said, hey, I think we could do a version of MainStage online, and how would we have to adapt some of the scene study to be workable in that context? Can you share a little bit about how you approach that?
Sure. So Guys and Dolls, as I mentioned, is one of my favorites. One of the reasons is it's such a well-structured musical. It really has two main storylines, and we've chosen to focus on one this summer with Miss Adelaide and the Nathan Detroit story. And then in looking at, it's so important in these Camp Broadway shows that everyone feels like they are telling a substantial part of the story. I've done a lot of interviews for Camp Broadway in the past couple months, and actors and directors and choreographers and scenic designers and playwrights and authors, everyone says it's all about storytelling. And so it was so important to me in looking at the small scenes that the campers are going to do, that they tell a vital part of the story. So even if they feel like, well, I just have this one small scene, we can't have that one small scene without getting to the end. So it was just looking at those and making sure that our 4 different groups have their moment to contribute to the story.
I think that's really important in talking to the music directors and also to Holly and Jay. It all comes back to telling that story, and whether it's in person or online, making sure that the way those programs are delivered still give all the campers an opportunity to shine along the way. So then, Isaac, can you talk a little bit about, in the Camp Broadway programs, we've worked together for the past couple years and working on the workshops and activities within the programs that contribute to a complete programmatic experience for the campers are related to the rehearsal content, but not directly related to Guys and Dolls. Can you talk a little bit about how those workshops build on the camper experience?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, a lot of the camper experience we're going to be having we're going to be working a lot on developing your character as featured players, getting to work with these campers in that kind of one-on-one way. And so a lot of that will be starting off with some of the basics of the fundamentals of the acting things, but then a lot of that will getting to touch on what about those acting fundamentals can we then draw and use as the basis for building our character within Guys and Dolls. And what's neat is that we're all going to discover that there's a lot of freedom to really kind of take a lot of the questions we'll give you and run with them. You know, not just like, what's the name of your character, but what brings them to New York? What do they do for a living? What makes today and this moment for your character so important and vital? And why are we choosing to tell that story right now? And on top of that, it's just, those sessions are just so much fun getting to brainstorm and think of those. And in a virtual world, it's also going to be neat because we're going to get to hopefully be able to share some different media as well that we might not necessarily have the opportunity to do if we weren't all sharing screens together.
Yeah, I think that's an important note, that there are benefits of being in person and then there are benefits virtually that we're discovering. So it's kind of exciting to think of something that maybe 2 or 3 months ago we thought of as a limitation, now just providing a different set of opportunities. So Alexandra, I also know that the feature players also form bonds with the campers, and the campers really look up to and admire the feature players. Whenever we post your pictures on Instagram, we get, oh, there's Anna or Isaac or Alexandra and hearts and smiley faces. So the campers really do love that connection. So I'm just interested in your thoughts of how that carries forward into a virtual space, especially since you're coaching them to work on individual performances. You're going to coach them to make these single videos that then get edited into a big performance. So how do you see that relationship adapting virtually?
So I think that, like, when thinking about sort of the Camp Broadway idea, I think the featured player is actually one of the easiest relationships to translate virtually. Within the structure, we have the opportunity to really get to know the kids and create personal relationships that sort of go beyond the teacher-student relationship. And I think online environment will just kind of provide a unique extension because we're getting to know them in their own personal space, coming from their own, you know, places, wherever that may be, instead of having them in our space. So I think going into their space is going to be a really important aspect that will extend that relationship that we have in a deeper, sort of more interesting or differently interesting way.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also a point where I'll take the opportunity to remind mom and dad and aunts and uncles and grandparents out there that whenever we engage in a virtual space on Facebook, our staff has strict rules of how they engage that way, and that no minor child is ever alone in a virtual space with any of the campers. So we follow the COPA laws, which guide engagement with minors in an online environment. So they're all welcome to engage with the feature players through our social media channels in a monitored online space. I think also, I just saw that we have Chris Lewis, who's ready to join us, and he's another one of our featured players, and his arrival is timely because he was also a camper.
Hi.
So Chris, we've been talking about Camp Broadway's adaptation to MyMainstage online, and your arrival was right on cue, as our performers always are. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about your experience as a camper, and then what it was like to come and work as a staff member after you became a professional artist. So,
Yeah.
and how does that inform your work?
Yeah, so I was camper in 2003 at the Atlanta camp, and my sisters were involved with it 2 years prior to that. And so all three of us then became involved that summer. And I grew up loving theater, but it wasn't until, and I'm serious, like when I say it was really Camp Broadway that actually said, oh, wait a minute, I could see a future in myself with this. And so Camp Broadway literally just, it changed everything about the way I thought, you know, in regards to theater. And I started getting more serious about it. And then in high school, I started pursuing it more and more. And then obviously I went to college and graduated with a degree and then performed professionally for a long time. And then it wasn't until I was living in New York, I had been connecting with Bill Newberry, who has been a music director for Camp Broadway for a long time. And he said, hey, you know, you were a camper back in 2003. Do you want to like look into being a featured player now? And I said, huh. That sounds cool. So we started chatting about it. I said, well, yeah, I would love to, you know, get in contact with somebody. And so I reached out, and then I was so thankful enough to be a part of the team. And it was really inspiring, just especially like, you know, being the featured player that summer, which was 2017, and just seeing like the energy in some of those kids, the same way I had energy at that young age, and thinking, oh, wonder where they're going to end up one day. Maybe they'll be a featured player one day. Who knows? So it really has been quite a journey, and getting to still be a part of Camp Broadway is fascinating. So I'm very happy. Yeah.
So what were your thoughts around the idea of taking that experience you had and adapting it to a virtual space?
You know, listen, we adapt. In theater, we adapt. That's something I'm saying to myself and saying to others. You know, you have to. So in times that are hard, you know, look, we keep going. And if we can find ways to, you know, do that by virtual, great. I mean, there's still so much of theater to learn about, and doing this virtually, I think is going to be inspiring. And now that, you know, we can reach out to, you know, campers all over the nation and be able to do, you know, provide this platform for them, I think that's going to be inspiring to say, hey, look, we are still trying to keep the arts alive and keep this camp going as much as possible. So I think, you know, it makes me, as a performer and a future player, even more inspired to say, look, we are out there to, you know, to develop that character for all these campers out there that still want to continue this program this summer. So.
If can I jump on something Chris just said?
Absolutely.
And actually a little bit Alexandra. You know, we talk about that Camp Broadway's motto is develop your character, and like Isaac said, we're spending a lot of time, a little bit more than because we have the ability this summer with our virtual camp to take the time to develop those characters. And I think one of the most amazing things that I find every summer, it always surprises me, I don't know why it does, the imagination and the creativity that each camper has when you give them this opportunity to develop this whole new human being. They just come up with things in their brain, and you're like, how did you know, especially myself working with the 7 to 9-year-olds, but also with MainStage, those little 10-year-olds who they're like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's a great, you know, and none of that is lost in a virtual camp because you have, like we said, we have the opportunity to take that time, and it'll translate, it'll cross screens, and you'll feel it in the performance.
Right, and I would say too, going back, in that when I was a camper, obviously we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have these platforms, and you know, I do wonder, what would we have done during this time? What would, you know, back in 2003, what would we be doing if we couldn't do a camp of some sort? So now, and now fast forward and seeing how, especially young artists are now so well trained in technology. I think this is, and they love technology. That's the other thing, is that I think because they love technology and they can utilize that while also learning and furthering their interest in theater and art and music and dance, that's a perfect combination. So I think this is going to be a fantastic program this summer.
Right, it's probably a bigger transition for us than for them.
Yes, it is. The millennials, yes, indeed. You would think it wouldn't be that way, but it is.
The whole left hand, right hand choreography thing, that's everything throwing us.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
We'll
Yeah.
be there by the time camp starts, but it's an interesting transition.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of rehearsal and a lot of planning, but just like if we were going to be live, we would have a lot of rehearsal and a lot of planning just for a different platform and a different kind of stage. So the last thing I wanted to address is that most of the time, the feature players all perform with the campers in roles. In the virtual space, our staff to camper ratio is actually higher than it would be in person. So while Isaac and Anna are playing Nathan and Miss Adelaide respectively, there's another important touch point between the campers and the feature players, and that is in our family finale, every camper gets introduced to the audience alongside of the group that they participated in during the program. So we wanted to still preserve that touch point. So, and also be able to show off all of our feature players. So Alexandra and Chris will do the honors of introducing the campers to the families and friends who log on to watch the performance. And it comes with a little bit of special coaching. So it's not just saying their name, but the kids deliver a vow that they craft themselves through one of the workshops that Isaac spoke about. So Alexandra, can you share a little bit about what the process is for the kids to demonstrate themselves a little bit through that workshop and that vow, and then, you know, introducing them in that context to their families? It might almost be like a little bit of a reintroduction, sharing a little bit of their personality that maybe was uncovered during the process.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think it's like, it goes back to Anna and Isaac both touched on this idea that camp that is developing your character. And I think that we spend a lot of time focusing on developing their character within the show, but then we get this wonderful workshop where we get to develop their personal character, and we get to sort of encourage them to be as authentically them as they can be through different exercises and different games, but also just not being afraid and being brave and bold. And it's a really lovely moment where they always surprise you and they always do something so uniquely them and so wonderfully them, and getting to share that with us and then with their friends and family during the show is just such an exciting aspect, because not only have they grown as artists, but they've grown as people too.
Absolutely. Chris, do you have any thoughts you wanted to share on that point?
Yeah, I mean, you know, normally we have like a week with them to, you know, develop this. And so, you know, what's great about this summer is that we'll have 2 weeks. And I think that's even more of an opportunity to dive deep, just like Alexandra was saying, just getting, you know, bringing out that personal self that they have, you know, some of those personal qualities to the, you know, that they have to a more theatrical level, and getting to, it really is a good shining moment to just say, hey, look, I did this camp. I learned so much within a couple of weeks, and it's amazing how much you learn in a short period of time, especially at that young age. And so this is my chance to just say, thank you. Let me, if I have to do, you know, if I have to do a turn, if I have to do a barrel turn, whatever the end dance moves are today, the nay-nay, I don't know, something like that. If that's what they're gonna do, let them do it. You know, because it's like, is it Baby Shark? I don't know. But that's what it comes down to. I say, yes, like this is your chance to say thanks. And so take it to the stage. Don't be afraid, and just, you know, show this audience exactly what you have learned in the last couple of weeks, and now just have a great time. So
that's a great note to wrap up on. It's the idea of giving thanks back to the audience. Camp Broadway is certainly grateful to all the families out there who support their children's interest in the theater. And so we can't wait to see all of you this summer. We can't wait to have your kids in the program, and we can't wait for you to see the performance that they deliver at the end. Thanks, everybody.
See you soon.
see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.